City Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Richard Acritelli. This is a podcast, is a production of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. On today's episode of The Fog of War and Humanity here on hmTV, my special guest to the left of me is Keith Bittner. Will join me for a conversation about his time in the Navy during the Vietnam War and his moments today as a major advocate for Veterans Affairs for all members of the armed forces. Let's get started. Here we go, Keith. Where did you grow up as a young man?
I grew up in Brentwood, Long Island.
Okay. What are some of the things that you recall about Brentwood itself there?
We were like on the border between Deer Park and West Islip and Bayshore, and we had like neighborhood teams playing baseball all the time. And the field we used to play on was in Deer Park, so.
A lot of sandlot stuff?
Oh, a lot of stuff. A lot.
What position did you play as a kid there?
Mostly outfield, sometimes first base.
I've seen you play pickleball, so I know you can move a little bit.
Yeah.
And you love your sports.
Yeah.
And you're in good shape, so.
Yeah, somewhat.
What did you like about baseball itself growing up?
I don't know. It was just fun,
Yeah.
The kids, it was like our gang,
Yeah.
Just a bunch of kids hanging out, playing baseball almost every day during the summer.
Was it like the Sandlot a little bit, the film The Sandlot?
I would say so, yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah, you got some tough kids from Deer Park and Brentwood and Bayshore, the Islips, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, did your family always live in Brentwood, or did they move out from the city, or were they always there?
No, when I was born, we had lived in Babylon.
Okay.
And then I guess it was maybe like 53 or 54 is when parents bought the house, and we moved into the house in Brentwood.
Now, Brentwood today is a huge area. It's one of the
very big,
largest school districts in New York State, right? Yeah. Did Brentwood change over the years in terms of from what you remember it?
If you can believe it, got more congested. We were in one of the first, I guess, buildings or complexes building over there, and our next door neighbor. They were living on the street, and I can remember when my father put a chain link fence around. It was halfway across his driveway.
Wow.
The guy came home and almost hit the fence.
Yeah.
Because that was his driveway.
Sure.
But it wasn't really his property.
Yeah. All right. You had a lot of baby boomers right there.
Oh yeah.
A lot from.
Oh yeah.
Right, the GI Bill and from the veterans of World War II in terms of Europe and the Pacific.
Yeah.
Now, did your father, was he in the service, or did you have family members?
He was in the Navy. He was in the Armed Guard.
Okay. Now, what exactly is that there, the Armed Guard there?
He was on board like a freighter with a contingent of like 20 naval people who ran guns to try and protect the ship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Where did they go? Did they?
I don't know too much about it. Mostly from what I remember was North Africa. He was in North Africa.
A lot of those ships, they took heavy losses. With the heavy U-boat presence in the Atlantic Ocean and the North Atlantic and those shipping lanes and everything. And people always think of the aircraft carriers and the destroyers and the bigger vessels, but a lot of those freighters, the shipping lines, they took heavy losses, especially trying to keep the Soviets in the war. Yeah, against the Germans. Yeah. So now, did the Navy always appeal to you?
It did. My father, he grew up on the water, hence he went into the Navy, and as a young kid, we had a boat. We always go out fishing or clamming or crabbing, and
Were you a South Shore kid?
Yes.
So what would you go to Robert Moses Beach or?
Robert Moses wasn't there.
Wasn't even there.
Once in a while, we would go to Jones Beach and go to the pool, which was a real treat. Yeah. But other than that, we would maybe Cedar Beach in town of Babylon or over to Captree Beach.
You guys ride your bikes down there, or is that a little too far of a ride?
Not really. As I got a little older, I used to ride my bike down there. I have memories of riding my bicycle underneath the Captree Bridge.
Wow.
To go on the other side. There was a canal that they were starting to build, and it was good snapper fishing over there, and we used to go fishing and swimming over there.
You liked your fishing?
Nah, not so much now,
Okay. Now, you're in high school. You play soccer,
Yep,
basketball,
basketball.
and no baseball?
When I went into high school, I was a pretty good runner. But by the time track season came, all the guys that I had ran track. I mean, they did winter track and cross country and everything. And it was kind of discouraging watching them run so far ahead of me.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave it up, which I'm sorry I didn't, because that team eventually came to be one of the top teams in the country.
Wow.
As far as a track team.
Yeah, it's different muscles, different conditioning.
Yeah.
You're a strong guy, but it's a different, different strengths.
Wasn't
and
used
weaknesses.
to the long distance running that the track coach had us running.
Sure. Especially they're running cross country, they're running winter track. You're playing soccer, you're playing basketball, and then to go out and run track's a little bit different. You know? So now, what year do you graduate from Brentwood High School?
1968.
1968. So you're in the heart of the Vietnam War. Yep. It's not going away.
Nope.
Do you remember what you saw on TV and what you read in the newspapers or heard on the radio about the war?
Not really. It's just, I was a kid. I was young. I mean, the only reason where I joined the Navy was my future brother-in-law. He had gone into the Naval Reserve, and he convinced me, why don't you join the Naval Reserve? So, after I graduated in 68, in September of 68, I joined the Naval Reserve.
And where did they send you to Great Lakes for your...
Yeah, I went to Great Lakes in October.
So when you were processing in, did you go to Fort Hamilton?
No, I went to Brooklyn Naval Yard.
You went to Brooklyn Naval Yard.
Yeah.
What was the feeling when you were processing in? Did they say eventually you're going to end up overseas, or they were just concerned about getting your paperwork done and then moving you through there?
They had two classifications. They had seamen, which were people that worked above decks, and then they're called fireman rates, people who work below decks in engineering and stuff. So it would rotate every other day. Seamen would go to the West Coast, firemen would go to the East Coast, and the next day would be vice versa.
Sure.
And just happened to be the day that I went, I was going to the West Coast. They give you a dream sheet, where do you want to go? And I put down Antarctic. I wanted to go to the Antarctic. But
a little different than Brentwood, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But I ended up going to the West Coast.
Okay. All right. So now you go to Great Lakes. When did you train? In the fall of 1968?
Yes, in the fall.
Did you have TET in the back of your mind and some of these things going on, or you were just a young guy and you were just looking at what was ahead of you?
Pretty much, just looking what was ahead of me, not too in the far distance.
Okay. All right. Now, you go to Great Lakes. What were the biggest things to get used to?
The cold.
The cold itself?
The cold. I'm glad I wasn't there for the winter, because we were there in October and it was cold.
And that's just the wind coming off the lakes and everything? And
yeah. Get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You got to stand in line, muster or whatever, then go stand in line to get fed, then come back out, stand in line. It was cold.
Would you rather have the cold or the heat?
Probably the heat.
The heat, right?
Yeah.
So now, how long were you there for?
I was only there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks training.
For basic, that was it?
Yes. And we kind of lucked out, because our company commander, that was his first command as a company commander. So as hard as he tried, he wasn't living up to the expectations of his friends who that he knew there, who were already company commanders.
Wow.
So we kind of had it easy, I think.
Okay. All right. Now, after you leave Great Lakes, where do you end up?
We go back home for, I guess, another 10 months, to train. Used to have to go every Monday night up to Huntington to the Reserve Center.
Was that up off of Pulaski Road over there?
No, it was way up north.
Lloyd's Neck Harbor? Or?
It's not even there anymore, because I work for King Cullen, and there was a store that's almost right across the street.
Okay.
And the center's not there anymore. It's long gone.
So now, what were you training as?
I was training as a seaman. You know, you took tests for radioman and quartermaster and other things. You know, but I just took them. You know, I know what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a bosun's mate. You want to be a what?
Yeah.
I want to be a bosun's mate. You know, that's a sailor.
Yeah. And what were some of the responsibilities with that type of job?
You would stand the watches in the bridge, tie the ship up, you know, help bring the lines in when you're going out to sea, paint the ship, paint the decks, you know.
Was there any one thing that you still remember? You're driving, you're coming up here from Rocky Point, right?
Uh-huh.
Is there any one memory that often like you think about when doing that type of job?
No.
The maintenance.
I have to laugh about the mops. You know, you used to get mops. You know, you used to get up, especially when you're out to sea. You had to get up and swab the decks.
Yeah. Get
all the salt air off before the sun hardened it on the deck. So you get up there with fresh water. And a lot of times, you know, to get the salt off, you tie a rope around the mop and throw it over the side.
Yeah.
Well, how many times did the mop get thrown over the side? You know, they're all just braided.
Yeah.
And they forget about it, and you go to bring it up, and there's only one string on it.
Yeah.
After being about maybe 50, 60. Kind of comical.
Sure. Okay. All right. Now, you're doing this job for about, what, 10 months, right? And then do you get mobilized through the Navy itself there?
After a year, you have to go on active duty for 2 years. But before that, come that early spring, I had to do 2 weeks of training on board a ship. So I got sent to Philadelphia to go on a ship for a cruise to, I think, the Bahamas or Bermuda. But when I got there, you know, as the government always goes, things got screwed up.
Yeah, things change.
The ship left the week before. So now I'm standing there, and people are scratching their head. What am I going to do with this guy? So finally they said, okay, you're going to go on this ship over here. I was on the USS Conway.
Did something happen on the ship there? Or?
It's just funny. Because years later, speaking to my uncle, he was on board that ship in Korea.
So you had a family connection to the ship then?
I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was like maybe 10, 15 years, maybe even longer, when I happened to just mention the ship, you know. And he was the same thing I was. He was a bosun mate. But at that time, he was also a coxswain. He ran the boat around the, you know, the lifeboat and stuff.
Did he see action?
Oh, yeah.
Did he ever talk to you about it, or was it after the service he spoke to you about it?
Yeah,
What kind of ship was that?
Kind of Googled it on the Stars and Stripes, his ship, and there was an article, and I sent away for a copy of it, and I got a nice big copy of it, and framed it up for him to give to him about the action that he saw, what happened with one of his ships.
What was the responsibilities of that ship?
That ship at the time, you know, was recovery of downed pilots, you know.
Which we just saw in the news recently, right?
The ship got an accommodation for, you know, rescuing pilots, you know, as they come on out, they land close to shore and they go in close. And
so did they have a helicopter on the ship?
No helicopters.
So what do they do, like support, that sort of thing?
Yeah, they would go in as close as they could, and they would return fire to the shore fire, and my uncle would get into the boat and go out to the plane and try and rescue the guy in the plane.
Did they have any amphibious landing vessels or anything like that, or?
No, he wasn't on that. No.
So the big ship with that, the big aspect of that ship was to ensure.
Yeah, it was a destroyer. It was a destroyer he was on.
Was to go in there and try to recover downed pilots, armed forces members, right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Wow. Yeah, we just saw that in the news over the last week,
Yeah.
right, in Iran. And it's very possible that some of the guys out in 106 was tied to that, you know, the PJs, the pararescue jumpers that are close to here on Long Island, you know. So where did they send you? Like the first ship, you guys were going to go to Bahamas. Where did
I
they
didn't go
ship them?
anyplace.
You didn't go anywhere?
The ship was, I think the ship was inoperable because we just sat there and
You lost out on that deal,
we
right?
chipped some paint and, you know,
Did some
we
maintenance.
had some practice fire drills
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
So you stayed in, what, Philadelphia Harbor? Or?
Philadelphia Harbor for 2 weeks.
And while the other guys are getting a tan down in the Bahamas, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
but that's the military, though.
Yeah.
That's, you
Yeah.
can't make it up.
No.
Right? Where things just change. You just,
Yep.
you don't know.
Yep.
You know? So now you're on that ship. It's probably a long 2 weeks, right? What do you do after those 2 weeks itself?
Then I go back home. You know, I believe it was in like March that I did that
Of
2 weeks.
69, right?
Of 69. Then I went home, and then in September of 69, I went on active duty. I had to go to the Brooklyn Naval Yard and, you know, go there and fill out all my paperwork, you know, physicals and everything else again. And then I was probably there maybe 2 weeks before I got word of where I was going.
Did you have to stay there for 2 weeks, or were you able to go back and forth?
I went home on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear so much with the Brooklyn Naval Yard, right? It's so historic, and it's still there.
It's still there.
right, but it's not as probably big and functioning as it once was.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts of being there in 1969? I mean, the place must have been hopping at that point, right? I mean, it must.
There was a lot of people there. There was a lot of people. You know, actually, when I got discharged, I got sent back there again to be discharged. And it was funny, you know, when first time I was there, we would sweep the stairs. We were in charge of sweeping the stairs. There was like 4 or 5 of us sweep the stairs all, from the brig, which was all the way up the top down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And now when I go back there, I'm an E4, a bosun's mate. So now I'm in charge of these guys sweeping the floor.
All right. You know, everyone's got a job, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's what Patton said, from the cook all the way up. Everyone's got a responsibility.
You know, they had a gym that was there. We used to play basketball. You know,
Did you guys have any teams in terms of the Navy?
I was on our ship's basketball team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a great picture once of Gerald Ford, and Ford was a great football player at I think it was Michigan State, right? And he was a big guy, and they used to make fun of Ford for being a klutz. I guess he fell a couple of times, and he used to get so mad when they call him a klutz because he was such an athletic, you know, and coordinated guy. He was on an aircraft carrier, and they had a basketball net, and you could see him jumping and the muscles coming out of him.
Yeah.
And there's always, you know, on some of the military teams, there was some really good talent there.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
where you had semi-pro, you had major leagues like the guys that we know, Frankie, who was told you have to go in the service. Then you might be able to determine where you end up.
Yeah.
And just like we're doing an expansion on the museum now, there's an exhibit on the professional athletes and everything. And so many of those guys, like Johnny Padres or Duke Schneider, you know, they played on those military teams, you know, and there was a tremendous amount of talent, you know. It was like a good thing. These were young guys who were in great shape.
Yeah.
Were serving the country, but they wanted to play a little bit.
On board the ship I got on, we had like weights, way down in the well deck. You go down there and you work out. There was like a half-court basketball.
Yeah.
We used to play basketball every day.
What position did you play for the team there?
I played forward.
Yeah? Yeah. Did you like to score a little bit, or?
I didn't get to play that much. I only played in 2 games.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we that's only when we were in the base.
Yeah.
You know, but when we went overseas, we didn't have any games against any other ships or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. All right. So now you're in Brooklyn for 2 weeks. Where do you end up after that?
I head out to Long Beach to meet my ship, which just had gotten out of dry dock.
So Long Beach, California,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the military flies you out there?
No, you get military standby on TWA.
Really?
Yeah,
So you have to wait to...
yeah. They pay for it, but you're military standby, and more than likely you get on.
Okay. So you fly into San Diego,
No,
Los Angeles?
Los Angeles.
And then how long are you out in California for?
Well, I got on board the ship in September, so then later in October, I think, is when we left to go down to San Diego, which was our home port.
How did you like California? You being a
liked
Long
California.
Island East Coast guy?
I liked California. It was different.
You like the weather and everything? And
It was different. You think that it's warm, but I'm telling you, you walk on those piers on a midnight to 4, it's cold on the water. It's cold.
the wind comes in?
Yeah, it's cold.
Okay. All right. So now you're in California. They probably have you doing some training, right? Out there?
We did a little bit of training. Gun training, and we never really did anything as far as amphibious landings or anything until we went over into the Philippines. It was the first time we even attempted to do anything that I remember.
So now, do they assign you to a ship there, or do they bring you somewhere else, and then you jump on a ship? Or
No,
how does
I
that
was
work?
assigned to the USS Duluth. That
There.
was the ship I was assigned to.
And that's the shirt that you have on
Yep.
today, right?
Yep.
So, what were your first thoughts when you were on the Duluth itself there?
It's a big ship. I mean, when we first got on board, we had just come out of the dry dock, so they put us in the troop compartments, where your rack was just canvas with a mattress on it,
Yeah.
and 4 high. So I think there was maybe about 8 or 10 of us that were in this one section. We were going to be in the 1st Division, and they kept us down there for, I'd say, maybe a month before we went up into where the division was quartered.
So it's pretty close quarters then, huh?
It was okay. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. It was different.
Definitely builds up your character a little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, your responsibilities on the ship, were you working mostly below deck, or did you go up top? Was it a combination of
Well, it
the two?
depends. And if we were going out to sea or coming in to sea, the whole division was up.
Okay.
Or we were in charge of the forecastle, the bow of the ship. Whatever lines were there, or dropping the anchor or whatever. But if we were in port, my workstation was usually the troop compartments. I was in charge of cleanliness, watertight doors, and making sure all the fire stations were up and ready to go.
Now, the cleanliness, it's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
You have everyone living in close quarters.
Yeah.
Imagine what a flu could do on a ship, right?
Oh yeah.
Go right through.
Yeah.
Did you come in contact with a lot of the senior officers? I would say probably yes, right? You're on the ship. You guys are living together.
Not really. Didn't see the captain much. Unless you were up in the bridge when you were out sailing, or if you were on watch on the quarterdeck when you came on board, you didn't see him much.
Or if you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So
the only officer I really had contact was the chaplain.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the chaplain like?
He was a very nice man.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Commander Kimball.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, I remember going to church. It was either that or cut the lawn that was like the size of the estate up here,
Yeah.
And I went to church, and it was like a nice thing to go to. Nobody was yelling at you. You just,
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, so now you're there for a couple of weeks, and then you sail, right? You go to Hawaii and then the Philippines.
Went to Hawaii. We tied up right across from the USS Arizona,
Wow.
which at that time I knew very little about the Arizona.
Very powerful, huh?
Yes.
And you saw all the tourists and everything, and
Yes. We were there for 2 days, and I think I was lucky enough I didn't have duty either one of those days. So we got to, explore a little bit, took a tour, went to the Enlisting Men's Club, put on our bathing suits, and just walked along Waikiki Beach. And if we saw something that interested us, we
yeah, sure.
said hi or jumped into the water here and there.
able to have a couple of beers too, probably.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a great spot as a duty station or to pass through.
Yeah.
Right. When you think of Pearl Harbor, do you often think about like your time? Because Pearl Harbor comes around every year on December 7th.
Yeah.
Is there any one thing that you remember? Is it the Arizona?
Yeah, that I was there. I was right next to it.
And the waters are pretty shallow there too.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the thing with the Japanese, that they never thought, first of all, that their Navy could go that far and go that far undetected. And the second thing was their torpedoes. They thought it would go right down into the mud of Pearl Harbor, and they were actually practicing for very low level back in Japan, for that. So, but all right. So Keith, we're gonna come back for a second episode here on the Fog of War and Humanity. We're gonna kind of get into Keith's service on the USS Duluth, his time overseas, and some of the many places that he had visited as a young man. So return back here to hmTV and the Fog of War and Humanity.